What if I told you that millions of travelers visit Paris every year, yet most of them miss the city's greatest secrets? Right now, tourists are standing in hour-long lines at the Eiffel Tower base, paying 20 euros for a simple coffee. Meanwhile, just 2 blocks away, locals are enjoying the same iconic view for free from a hidden bridge that most guidebooks never mention. While visitors rush through the Louvre's main entrance, fighting crowds to glimpse the Mona Lisa for 30 seconds, there are entire wings filled with priceless treasures where you can stand alone with masterpieces that changed history. Today we're exploring the 10 best places to visit in Paris, but we're doing something different. We're revealing the insider secrets that transform ordinary tourist stops into extraordinary experiences. You'll discover hidden viewpoints, secret timing tricks, and local shortcuts that most visitors never learn. By the end of this journey, you won't just know where to go in Paris. You'll know exactly how to experience each place like someone who truly understands this magnificent city. Are you ready to unlock the real Paris? Let's begin. Here's a question that might surprise you. What if the best view of the Eiffel Tower isn't actually from the Eiffel Tower itself? Every day, thousands of people pay up to 30 euros to go up this iron giant, but locals know something tourists don't. Walk just 10 minutes from the tower to a bridge called Pont de Ber Hakim. This is where photographers come for that perfect shot, where the tower rises majestically between the bridge's pillars. The view is completely free, and here's the secret. Visit at sunrise around 7 in the morning, and you'll have this incredible perspective almost entirely to yourself. But there's more to this tower than views. When Gustave Eiffel built it in 1889, Parisians actually hated it. Famous writers called it an eyesore. They tried to tear it down multiple times. What saved it? World War I. The tower's radio transmissions became so valuable for military communications that the city decided to keep it. Look closely at the tower's structure next time you visit. Those 18,038 pieces of iron are held together by over 2 million rivets, each one placed by hand. In summer, the iron expands so much that the tower actually grows 6 inches taller. Here's your insider timing trick. Visit twice, once during the day for photos, then return at sunset. Every hour after dark, the tower sparkles for 5 minutes with 20,000 golden lights. Most tourists don't know this light show happens every single hour until 1 in the morning. But wait until you discover what lies beneath Paris's most famous avenue, just minutes from here. Our next stop holds secrets that even long-time residents rarely see. Why do millions of people walk down the Champs-Élysées every year, yet miss the hidden world that exists just steps away from the busy sidewalks? Most visitors see expensive shops and crowded cafes, but this famous avenue holds architectural secrets that date back centuries. Step into the Galerie des Champs-Élysées, a covered passage that most tourists walk right past. Built in the 1800s, this glass-roofed arcade houses boutiques, cafes, and art galleries where Parisians actually shop. The crowds disappear, replaced by the quiet elegance that makes Paris legendary. This avenue wasn't always a shopping destination. Originally, it was just a dirt path leading to a royal hunting ground. Napoleon transformed it into the grand boulevard we see today, designing it specifically for military parades and royal ceremonies. At the avenue's end stands the Arc de Triomphe. But here's what most people miss. You can climb to the top for one of Paris's most spectacular 360-degree views. Unlike the Eiffel Tower, this viewpoint rarely has long lines, especially if you visit in the late afternoon. The real secret, the best of the Champs-Élysées, isn't on the main avenue at all. Duck into the side streets like Rue Washington or Avenue Montaigne. Here you'll find the authentic Parisian café culture, family-run bistros and shops where locals actually browse. But if you think these ground-level secrets are impressive, wait until you see Paris from the water. Our next destination offers a perspective that completely changes how you understand this city's layout. What if I told you there's one experience in Paris that teaches you more about the city's history in 1 hour than most people learn in an entire week? The Seine River isn't just a waterway, it's a timeline flowing through 2,000 years of architecture. Skip the expensive dinner cruises with mediocre food. Instead, take a simple 1-hour cruise during late afternoon. This timing gives you perfect lighting for photos and smaller crowds than the evening tourist boats. From the water, you'll see why medieval builders chose these exact spots for their greatest monuments. Notre-Dame Cathedral sits on Île de la Cité, an island that has been the heart of Paris since Roman times. The river perspective shows you the cathedral's flying buttresses, architectural marvels that most ground-level visitors never properly notice. The Louvre reveals its secrets from the river too. What looks like one massive museum is actually several different palaces built over centuries. From the Seine, you can clearly see where each king added his own section, creating the magnificent complex that exists today. Each bridge tells its own story. Pont Alexandre III, with its golden statues and ornate lamps, was built to celebrate French-Russian friendship. Pont Neuf, despite its name meaning new bridge, is actually Paris's oldest surviving bridge, completed in 1607. Here's your professional photography secret. The best light for river photos happens 30 minutes before sunset. The water reflects the warm light, creating that golden glow you see in professional travel magazines. But above-ground views are just the beginning. Beneath the streets of our next destination lies one of Europe's most extensive networks of ancient tunnels and chambers. Did you know that beneath your feet in the Latin Quarter, Roman ruins stretch for miles through underground chambers that most Parisians have never seen? This neighborhood isn't just historically important, it's where you can literally walk through layers of civilization. Visit the Cluny Museum, but not for the medieval art most people come to see. In the basement, perfectly preserved Roman baths from the 1st century still stand exactly where Roman citizens once relaxed. These aren't replicas, these are the actual stones that Romans touched 2,000 years ago. The Latin Quarter earned its name because for centuries, all university classes were taught in Latin. The Sorbonne, founded in 1257, has been educating students for over 750 years. Walk through the university courtyard where Marie Curie once studied, where Voltaire debated, where the intellectual foundations of modern France were built. The Pantheon dominates the quarter's skyline, and inside lies one of history's most impressive collections of great minds. Voltaire, Marie Curie, Victor Hugo, and dozens of other French heroes rest here. But here's what most visitors miss. The building's dome offers spectacular views of Paris, with far fewer crowds than more famous viewpoints. Shakespeare and Company Bookstore has been a gathering place for writers since 1919. Hemingway browsed these shelves. James Joyce held readings here. Today, you can still find rare books and attend literary events, continuing a tradition that has lasted over a century. The Quarter's cafes aren't just places to drink coffee, they're where existentialism was born, where Sartre and de Beauvoir spent hours debating philosophy, where ideas that changed the world were first discussed over simple cups of coffee. But if you think centuries-old intellectual tradition is impressive, our next destination takes us into a neighborhood where medieval streets hide stories of revolution, art, and transformation that most history books never tell. What happens when you take Paris's best-preserved medieval neighborhood and fill it with cutting-edge galleries, hidden courtyards, and some of the city's most innovative restaurants? You get the Marais, a district where every corner holds surprises that most tourists completely overlook. Place de Vosges appears suddenly as you turn a corner, like discovering a perfect secret. Built in 1612, it's Paris's oldest planned square, where red brick and white stone create architectural harmony that hasn't changed in 4 centuries. Victor Hugo lived at number 6, now a museum where you can see exactly how France's greatest writer lived and worked. The Marais holds Europe's largest Jewish quarter, with traditions dating back to the Middle Ages. Rue des Rosiers buzzes with authentic falafel shops, kosher bakeries, and synagogues where communities have worshipped for generations. This isn't a tourist recreation. This is living history continuing today. Here's the Marais secret that changes everything: the hidden courtyards. Ordinary-looking doorways lead to magnificent private squares surrounded by galleries, cafés, and workshops. Most visitors walk right past these entrances without realizing entire worlds exist just steps from the busy streets. Today's Marais perfectly balances preservation with innovation. Medieval buildings house contemporary art galleries. Ancient cellars have become wine bars where Parisians gather after work. Traditional craftsmen work alongside modern designers, creating a neighborhood that honors its past while embracing the future. Visit the Marais in early evening, when galleries stay open late and restaurants prepare for dinner service. The narrow streets fill with locals heading home, artists opening exhibitions, and the authentic Parisian life that makes this district magical. But from medieval streets, we're about to climb to Paris's highest point, where a completely different kind of history was made. Our next destination changed how the world sees art forever. Why did the greatest artists of the early 1900s choose to live in this hilltop village that was barely part of Paris? Montmartre wasn't fashionable, it wasn't wealthy, but it offered something that changed art history forever: freedom. The Sacré-Cœur Basilica crowns the hill, its white domes visible from across Paris. Built after France's defeat in the Franco-Prussian War, it was meant to restore the nation's spiritual confidence. The church's Romano-Byzantine architecture stands out dramatically against typical Parisian styles, making it one of the city's most recognizable landmarks. Place du Tertre bustles with portrait artists today, but in the early 1900s, this square was home to revolutionary painters who created entirely new ways of seeing. Picasso lived just around the corner. Renoir painted the famous Moulin de la Galette windmill that still stands nearby. The Moulin Rouge, with its famous red windmill, invented the can-can dance that scandalized and delighted Belle Époque Paris. While tourists flock to expensive dinner shows today, locals know the real history. This was where working-class entertainment became high art, where social barriers broke down through music and dance. Skip the crowded main square and discover Montmartre's secret places. Place du Calvaire offers spectacular views without the crowds. Rue Courtauld houses the Montmartre Museum, where you can see exactly how artists lived during the neighborhood's golden age. Here's something most people never expect. Montmartre still has a working vineyard, the Clos Montmartre, producing wine right in the heart of Paris. Every October, locals celebrate the harvest with festivals that continue traditions dating back to medieval times. Visit Montmartre at sunset for views that explain why artists fell in love with this place. As Paris lights up below, you'll understand why this hilltop village inspired some of history's greatest masterpieces. But speaking of masterpieces, our next stop houses more famous artworks than perhaps anywhere else on Earth. What you'll discover there goes far beyond what most visitors ever see. What if the Mona Lisa, the artwork that draws millions of visitors, is actually preventing people from seeing the Louvre's greatest treasures? While crowds gather around Da Vinci's famous painting, entire wings of priceless art sit nearly empty, waiting to be discovered. Skip the rush to see Mona Lisa first. Instead, start in the Egyptian wing, where you can stand alone with 4,000-year-old sculptures and perfectly preserved sarcophagi. The Greek sculptures, including the Venus de Milo and Winged Victory of Samothrace, receive a fraction of the Mona Lisa's crowds, but represent some of humanity's greatest artistic achievements. Remember, the Louvre was a royal palace for centuries before becoming a museum. In the Napoleon III apartments, you can see exactly how French emperors lived, with original furniture, tapestries, and decoration that most museum visitors never discover. Beneath the museum, the original medieval Louvre castle foundations remain perfectly preserved. Most visitors rush past this section, but here you can see the actual stones of the fortress that became the foundation for one of the world's greatest palaces. Professional tip: visit either early morning right when it opens, or late afternoon on Wednesday or Friday, when the museum stays open until 9:45 p.m. The lighting is better for viewing art, crowds are smaller, and you can actually spend time contemplating masterpieces instead of fighting for glimpse. Don't miss the courtyards between museum sections. These spaces showcase the Louvre's evolution from medieval fortress to Renaissance palace to modern museum, with architectural details that tell the story of French royal power over centuries. From royal palaces, our journey takes us to spiritual architecture that has inspired visitors for over 850 years. But our next destination isn't just a church. It's a symbol of resilience that the whole world watched rise from ashes. On April 15, 2019, the world watched in horror as flames consumed Notre-Dame Cathedral's roof and spire. But what most people don't realize is that this tragedy revealed secrets about medieval construction that had been hidden for centuries, making Notre Dame's restoration one of the most fascinating archaeological projects in modern history. Even with ongoing restoration, Notre Dame's exterior remains one of the finest examples of French Gothic architecture. Those flying buttresses aren't just decorative. They're engineering marvels that allowed medieval builders to create walls so thin they seem to be made entirely of glass and stone lace. Notre Dame sits on Île de la Cité, the island that has been Paris's heart since Roman times. Julius Caesar himself established a settlement here over 2,000 years ago. Walking around the cathedral, you're standing where French kings were crowned, where Napoleon declared himself emperor, where history's most important events unfolded. Beneath Notre Dame's square, the archaeological crypt reveals layers of Parisian history. Roman walls, medieval foundations, and artifacts from 2 millennia create an underground museum that most tourists never discover. Here's your secret viewing spot. The garden behind Notre Dame offers the best angle for photographs, especially during golden hour when the Gothic stonework glows in warm light. This perspective shows the cathedral's incredible flying buttresses and reveals architectural details invisible from the crowded front entrance. The restoration project is bringing medieval craftsmanship back to life. Stone carvers are using techniques unchanged since the 1100s, and visitors can sometimes watch these master craftsmen work, continuing traditions that connect us directly to the cathedral's original builders. From medieval Paris, our next destination takes us to the absolute pinnacle of royal excess, where French kings created a palace so magnificent it helped trigger a revolution. What happens when you give unlimited power and unlimited money to kings who want to prove France is the greatest nation on earth? You get Versailles, a palace so extravagant that it eventually bankrupted the country and helped cause the French Revolution. The Hall of Mirrors isn't just a beautiful room. It's a political statement. 17 mirror-clad arches face 17 windows overlooking the gardens, creating infinite reflections of light and grandeur. When foreign ambassadors walked through this hall, they understood immediately that France possessed wealth and power beyond imagination. The gardens extend as far as you can see, covering 2,000 acres with mathematical precision. Every tree, every fountain, every pathway was designed to demonstrate that French kings could control nature itself. During summer weekends, the musical fountains show brings these gardens to life exactly as they performed for Louis XIV. Skip the crowded main palace and explore Marie Antoinette's private estate, the Petit Trianon. Here, the doomed queen created a fantasy village where she played at being a simple country girl, complete with a working farm and rustic cottages. This retreat shows the disconnect from reality that helped fuel revolutionary anger. Building Versailles required 36,000 workers and took decades to complete. The cost was so enormous that Louis XIV's finance minister tried to hide the real numbers from the king himself. Some estimates suggest the palace cost the equivalent of several $billion in today's money. The irony is unmistakable. While peasants starved in Paris, royalty at Versailles spent fortunes on single parties. Marie Antoinette's famous phrase, "Let them eat cake," may be a myth, but the attitude it represents was real enough to cost the royal family their heads. Versailles is just 40 minutes from central Paris by RER train. Visit on weekdays if possible, and start with Marie Antoinette's estate first, while crowds focus on the main palace. This reverse approach gives you intimate experiences before tackling the busier sections. From royal excess, our final destination takes us to spiritual perfection. What you're about to see represents Gothic architecture at its absolute peak. What if I told you that one small chapel in Paris contains more spectacular stained glass than most entire cathedrals? Sainte-Chapelle isn't just a church, it's a jewel box of colored light that represents Gothic architecture at its most perfect and ambitious. 15 windows rise 50 feet high, creating walls that seem made entirely of colored glass. Over 1,100 scenes from the Bible tell stories in glass that medieval people could read like books. When sunlight streams through these windows, the entire space glows like the inside of a giant gemstone. King Louis IX built this chapel for one purpose: to house the crown of thorns, which he believed Jesus wore during crucifixion. He paid more for this single relic than he spent building the entire chapel. Whether or not the crown was authentic, Louis created one of the most beautiful spaces in the Christian world to honor it. The engineering that makes these glass walls possible represents medieval innovation at its peak. Stone supports so thin they're almost invisible hold up enormous windows that should theoretically collapse under their own weight. 7 centuries later, they remain as perfect as the day they were completed. Visit Sainte-Chapelle during different times to see how changing light transforms the space completely. Morning light creates cool blues and purples. Afternoon sun brings out warm reds and golds. Each hour offers a completely different experience in the same small space. Pro tip: buy a combined ticket with the conciergerie next door, where Marie Antoinette spent her final days before execution. This combination gives you medieval royal luxury and revolutionary tragedy in one visit. while avoiding separate entrance lines. Standing inside Sainte-Chapelle, surrounded by 800-year-old light, you understand why medieval people believed they could touch heaven through architecture. This tiny chapel proves that sometimes the smallest spaces contain the greatest wonders. We've just journeyed through 2,000 years of history, from Roman ruins buried beneath Latin Quarter streets to Gothic perfection, reaching toward heaven in Sainte-Chapelle. But more than that, we've discovered how to see Paris the way locals do, how to find authentic experiences hidden behind tourist facades. You now know the secret viewpoints that offer better photos than crowded tourist spots. You understand the hidden courtyards in the Marais, the quiet morning hours at the Eiffel Tower, the lesser-known wings of the Louvre, where you can stand alone with masterpieces. Most importantly, you've learned that the best travel experiences aren't just about checking items off a list. They're about understanding the stories that make places magical, about connecting with the human experiences that created the world's most beautiful spaces. If this journey through Paris has inspired your wanderlust, make sure to subscribe for more insider travel secrets. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our latest adventures, and let me know in the comments which of these 10 places surprised you most. See you next time. Keep exploring, keep discovering, and remember that the best travel experiences always lie just beyond where most people look. The world is full of hidden wonders waiting for travelers brave enough to seek them out.